think you went live first. All right, and Facebook is here. We are live. We are simulcasting. So you can find us live on Instagram or on Facebook. Either place, we are going to be here talking about PCOS. So question one is, why are we talking so much about PCOS this month? Is because September is PCOS Awareness Month, and 1 out of every 7 women have been diagnosed with PCOS. Now, I've been a health and happiness coach for 20 plus years, and when I first started, I hardly ever heard anything about PCOS. Okay, I'm going to do something totally not live-like, but my air conditioner is on, and I know it's probably making sound, so I'm going to go turn it off. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back, and hopefully you can hear me a little bit better because I had to turn my air conditioner off. It's a little bit humid today. So today we are talking about PCOS. We are going to talk about what it is. We're going to talk about natural ways of healing yourself, and we are going to talk about what are some things that you can start doing today if you have any of these symptoms, or if you are one of the millions of women who suffer with this syndrome. So if you are just joining me and you are interested in this topic, but you don't know who I am because you found me through a hashtag, my name is Mubaraka Ibrahim, and I am your health and happiness coach. Once you watch one of my videos, once you like a post, once you make a comment, I am now your coach. All right? That is just the way that it works in my tribe. Okay? That means if you believe that physical, mental, and spiritual well-being is intertwined, and the weakness of one weakens them all, and the strengthening of one strengthens them all, then you have found your people. We are your people, because here on Fit Muslim on a Platform, we talk about food, faith, and fitness. And today we are specifically diving into PCOS. Some people acronym it as Pcos, whatever you want to call it. It stands for Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. So I'm going to give 2 disclaimers before I get started. The first disclaimer that I'm going to get is that I am not a medical doctor. So I am not here to try to diagnose or treat or prescribe any particular protocol for an existing medical condition, or diagnose a condition that your medical doctor has not diagnosed. I am a health and wellness coach, which means I have about 14 different certifications. I have a bachelor's degree in exercise science, public health, and psychology, and I have a certification as a nutritionist. So in the combination of all of these things and my 22 years now of experience of coaching women to be their healthiest, happiest selves, I have had the opportunity and the honor of coaching a lot of women with PCOS. I've also had the opportunity, I'm fortunate where I live in a city with a major university where major research is done, and have had a radio show and have had the opportunity to also interview experts on the topic, researchers and doctors, and I have learned quite a bit. So let's dive into it. PCOS is Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. The first thing that I want to say right off the bat is, for anybody out there that has PCOS, know that it is not a disease. You do not have a disease. This is what I learned from researchers, is a lot of times doctors will tell women that, oh, you have PCOS, and it's almost like telling them that they have cancer or something, like it's some type of disease that is going to forever be there and there's nothing you can do about it. So let's dive into what exactly it is. So PCOS is a syndrome, which means it is a collection of symptoms. So there is no official kind of like, you definitely have PCOS if you have this, this, and this, right? What they do is they look at all of your symptoms, and if you have a combination of certain symptoms, then they will diagnose you with PCOS. So different doctors look for different things, to be completely honest, but there is a baseline of what all doctors actually refer back to. So in order for a doctor to diagnose you with polycystic ovarian syndrome, you must have at least 2 of the first 3 things that I'm going to mention. So number 1, they will do a blood test and they will test your testosterone level. Women have testosterone. Testosterone is actually a good thing in normal amounts in women. It's actually one of our fat burning and muscle building hormones. When we have testosterone in our system, it actually helps us to burn fat, right? Actually, that's on a side note, that's one of the reasons why men lose weight much quicker than women, is because they have much higher testosterone level than women, which is a fat burning hormone. So number 1, the doctor will do a blood test and tell you that you have high testosterone levels. This is something that your medical doctor must test via a blood test. It's not something that you can do at home. It's not something that you can tell on your own, right? You may have symptoms that come from other things and not necessarily from high testosterone levels. So that's the first thing they're going to look at. The second thing they're going to look at is they're going to look at, do you have a history of an irregular menstrual cycle? What that means is that you don't menstruate every month, or you may go long periods of time without menstruation. That is an irregular menstrual cycle. You're not getting your menses on a monthly basis, right? So that's the second thing. The third thing that they would look at is that you actually have what they call a polycystic ovaries, which is small liquid sacs that are multiple sacs dispersed throughout your ovaries. They can see them again on an ultrasound. It is something that your doctor has to diagnose. You can't tell by looking at your body if you have polycystic ovarian ovaries, right? So if you have 2 of those 3 things, then your doctor may diagnose you with polycystic ovarian syndrome, right? Not everyone has all 3. Some people will have high testosterone levels and an irregular period, and they don't have cysts on their ovaries, but your doctor will still diagnose you as with polycystic ovarian syndrome. And some people will actually have all 3 things. In addition to all of these things, yes, Alima, I did mention that. These are 3 things. But the first thing that I said was 2 out of these 3 things must be present. You may not have irregular periods. You may not have cysts on your ovaries. You may not have high testosterone. But if you have 2 of those 3, that's the baseline of being diagnosed with PCOS. All right. In addition to these things, there are several symptoms that are very common that will send red flags to your doctor, right? You come to your doctor and you may complain that you have hair growing in places that normally men will have hair, right? So when you were younger, you may not have had hair growing on your chest, on your back, as a beard, as a mustache, right? Not a few hairs, which women get sometimes as they get older based on genetics, but you'll actually start looking like you need to shave on a daily basis, right? You'll actually start having patches of hair grow on your chest, or you may not have normally been a hairy person, but as you've noticed the last year or so, you have to shave your legs or actually shave your arms. That is considered abnormal hair growth for women, all right? So That's another sign that may raise a red flag for your doctor for them to do the other tests. Because remember, the testosterone test and the polycystic ovaries, those are things that your doctor has to order. It has to be a blood test. It has to be an ultrasound, right? So there are going to be things that are going to give your doctor red flags to tell them, okay, maybe we need to start thinking. You are gaining weight and you've been counting calories, you've been exercising till you're blue in the face and the scale barely moves, right? That's another sign. Opposite from growing hair in places that as a female you would not normally grow hair, you may also begin to notice that the hair on your head begins to thin or even fall out. That is also a large amount of hair loss. That's also a sign. And all of these are a result of an imbalance of hormones. And we're going to go over some of those hormones that your doctor will also look at. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the key hormone in polycystic ovarian syndrome, that if you get that one under control, that you will significantly see a difference in all of the other ones. All right. Unexplained fatigue, right? You're just always tired. Always tired. And so when you are tired literally for like no reason, like I did not do anything today, you know, the husband took the kids for the whole day, I did absolutely nothing and I'm still absolutely exhausted. Or, you know, it was a weekend and I laid on the couch and watched TV all weekend and I'm still like physically exhausted, right? So that's also a sign. Having adult acne, right? You're telling your doctor, like, I don't understand why I went through the acne period when I was a teenager and now I'm 40 and I'm breaking out like I'm 14. That's another sign that may raise red flags for your doctor. We talked about irregular periods. Another sign also too is pelvic pain, right? If you're having pelvic pain, unexplained pain during sex, pain when you're not having sex, that's another reason to go see your doctor. And she's going to look at all of these things. So she may see acne, facial hair growth, and you're complaining of pelvic pain. And she's like, tell me, what is your periods like? Do they come on a monthly basis, right? That's your doctor now paying attention to your red flags. Do your period come on a monthly basis, right? And I say this too so that you can be educated, because one of the most common thing that people tell me is like their doctor either took a very long time of diagnosing them, or even after the doctor diagnosed them, they didn't explain to them like what they're actually experiencing. So hopefully with a little bit more information on your end, you can go to your doctor if you feel like this is something that they need to test you on. So those are some of the signs of polycystic ovarian syndrome. So here is the interesting thing about why do women get polycystic ovarian syndrome? The answer is we have no idea. Doctors have not figured out, is there a reason? Is there certain women that get it? Is there a reason why they get it? They absolutely have no idea. What they do know is it tends to cluster in families. So they have not identified a particular gene or a reason why, but if a female in your family has polycystic ovarian syndrome, it's about a 25% chance that another female in the same family will have polycystic ovarian syndrome. The interesting thing that they actually found out in research when they looked at the mother-daughter connection of polycystic ovarian syndrome is they tested the hormones of women with polycystic ovarian syndrome and daughters. And they found that when the daughters had polycystic ovarian syndrome and they also tested the sons also had a higher than normal hormone level. But of course, if a boy has high testosterone, we're like, oh, he's so virile. He's getting all the things he's supposed to get. A boy gains weight and they're like, hey, he's husky and strong, right? A girl gains weight, she's overweight. A boy grows a beard. Oh, look at that. He has some facial hair at a young age. He's manly. Girl gains facial hair, not so much. So this is one reason why boys don't get diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, but they do see a familiar connection in polycystic ovarian syndrome. Again, it's only about 25% as we know right now. So just because your mom or your aunt has polycystic ovarian syndrome doesn't mean you're guaranteed to have it. It's just something, it's like one of those health risks that you just keep in the back of your mind to know that, okay, this is something that I have to be aware of that could be a possibility. So if I'm having these symptoms, me and my doctor can get up on it right away. An interesting thing that I actually learned from talking to a Yale researcher, Dr. Lubna Powell, in an interview with her is that one of the connections that they were looking at in her research was the connection between vitamin D and women with PCOS. And they found a very clear connection, right? Women with PCOS almost always have low vitamin D in her research study. They just don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg. So does low vitamin D make you more prone to developing PCOS, or does PCOS cause low vitamin D? They don't know that quite yet, but there is a connection there for sure, according to Yale researchers. So that's really interesting. What she actually explained to me about vitamin D. So here's a little tip. First tip of something that you can do if you have low vitamin D and you don't have PCOS, or if you just want to keep your immune system up, because we actually now know that there's a connection between severity of COVID and low vitamin D. Whole nother video for us to do, but you can Google it. There's lots of doctors talking about it and researchers talking about it. One of the things that she did tell me that really changed the way I was taking vitamin D is that she was saying that when your vitamin D is low, like for the first month or so, you need to take a large dose when you are taking your vitamin D. And then after you get your vitamin D to normal levels, you can then begin to take maintenance doses. But what they found is that when women just took maintenance doses and they had low vitamin D, that the vitamin D level actually did not come up very much. They needed an infusion of lots of vitamin D in the beginning, and then they became on a maintenance level. So that's the first thing that I learned. The second thing, which was really interesting, was that if you are going to get vitamin D, get it in liquid form. It's more bioavailable. That's number two. And the third thing about taking vitamin D is don't take it on an empty stomach. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. That means that it needs fat in order for it to be absorbed into your system. Right? There's other vitamins that are like that as well. Some vitamins are water soluble. So for example, vitamin C is a water soluble vitamin, meaning that the vehicle that it gets in order to go into the cell is water. But with vitamin D, the vehicle that it gets in must be fat. So you have to take it with your largest meal. That is really important. So think about that. Remember that when it's time to take your vitamin D. So we talked a little bit about what exactly PCOS is, what are some of the symptoms of PCOS, and who gets PCOS. So if you are just joining me, we are talking about how to heal yourself with PCOS. My name is Mubaraka Ibrahim, and I am your health and happiness coach. So when we talk about PCOS, and it's often referred to as an imbalance of hormones. Now, anytime somebody says anything general like that, I am the first person to say, what does that actually mean? What does it mean that you need to balance your hormones? So let's talk about that for a minute. Let's talk about specifically what are some of the main hormones that, again, these are things that your doctor needs to test. And I just also too want to warn you that we are in an over-information age. You may see a WebMD article, you may listen to this video and you're like, oh my God, I have all of these signs. I definitely have PCOS, right? If you think you have and you have not been diagnosed as such, I would recommend that you see your medical doctor, because all of these things can exist outside. You may have this problem or several of these problems and it not actually be considered PCOS, right? So your insulin may be high and your cortisol may be high and you may just be stressed the heck out and not actually have PCOS. So you want to make sure that you are dealing with the symptoms. So here is the best news. So I have good news for ladies with PCOS. Number one, it is not a disease. It is a collection of symptoms. And because it is a collection of symptoms, if you can get rid of one of the symptoms, if you have 2 out of those 3, and you get rid of one of them, you no longer have PCOS. It can be reversed. You can live a lifestyle without being diagnosed with PCOS. I want to assure you of that, right? So let's talk specifically about like, what are some of those symptoms? Where do they come from? What hormones are the doctors looking at? So one of the hormones that a doctor look at is androgen hormones. Those are the male hormones. The main of them is going to be testosterone, right? The testosterone, the increase in testosterone is responsible for a lot of the physical symptoms of PCOS. So high testosterone levels is going to give you hair growth in places that women do not normally grow lots of hair. High testosterone levels are going to cause you to lose your hair. So we talk about hair loss as a symptom. That's also as a result of having high testosterone levels. Having irregular periods. And I failed to mention, obviously, one of the main reasons that many women actually get diagnosed with PCOS is infertility. Right? Have a really hard time getting pregnant and having a baby. Part of that is because if you are going 4 months without having a period, that means that you're not ovulating. That means it decreases significantly your chances of actually conceiving a baby. So that is normally meaning what I hear the most often as a reason why a woman will go to the doctor and actually be diagnosed with PCOS, right? They get married or they decide to have a baby. Them and the husband have been trying for a year. That's what the doctors look at. Like, have you been trying to have a baby? Meaning you've been having unprotected sex for a year, have not been able to get pregnant. Okay, now I'm going to go to the doctor. And then the doctor is like, so your periods are irregular and I've looked at your hormone profile and your testosterone is really high. I think you have PCOS, right? That's the reason why you're having a difficult time getting pregnant. There's lots of things that the doctor can do to help you with that. But again, just want to remind you that I am not a medical doctor. And so I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to explain to you what this is and some ways that your eating and movement can help you to alleviate many of the symptoms of PCOS. So we was at androgen hormones or male hormones, particularly testosterone, which tends to be high. So one of the reasons why testosterone becomes high is because of our domino hormone. And if you've watched any of my lives, I think I probably mention insulin resistance in every live I do, because it is such a huge part of healing yourself and maintaining health. In PCOS in particular, high insulin levels leads to high testosterone. So that is important for you to note. So keep that as a note, because we're going to talk about insulin in a little bit. Another thing that happens when you have another hormone that's affected when you have PCOS is actually progesterone. Progesterone is low because of the missed periods, right? During the time of ovulation, normally our body reads up on our progesterone level. Well, you're not having regular periods, possibly so your body actually is low on progesterone. Now, progesterone actually leads to a lot of what people would describe as the emotional part of having PCOS. Anxiety, right? Depression, right? having fatigue, and something that a lot of women don't talk about, having low sex drive. That comes as a result of low progesterone levels. So if those are issues for you, right, you want to really, and when I say anxiety and depression, if you have a history of and been diagnosed with anxiety, been diagnosed with depression, again, that's why I say, because you have one of these things or a couple of these things doesn't mean you have PCOS. But if you've never had an issue with that and you are like, I'm really feeling depressed, like I get anxious for no reason, like I'm just like sitting down in my living room and all of a sudden I'm thinking about all of this wild stuff, like my kid's outside and they're going to get hit by a car and my heart is beating and your kid like playing in the same box in your backyard, right? Like you have thoughts and it's turned to anxiety and it's unusual for you, right? This is actually one of the signs of having PCOS, or one of the side effects, I shouldn't say signs, one of the side effects of having PCOS and low progesterone levels. Another hormone that the doctors look at is your thyroid, right? So this is only about 22% of women with PCOS will actually have low thyroid levels. I say that because this is almost a catch-all that many people will say, oh, my metabolism is slow because my thyroid, right? And that's actually not the whole reason why you're not losing weight, but low thyroid levels leads to physical exhaustion, right? That's what we talked about in the beginning. Like I'm doing absolutely nothing today and I'm still just like physically exhausted today, as I was yesterday, as I was the day after, as I was the day before that, and the day before that, right? You just have this general feeling of feeling exhausted all the time. And it's really hard to explain to people, like, I'm just tired, right? And they're like, why are you tired? You're not even doing nothing. Like, I'm just tired, right? And that is a result of low thyroid. Another thing that happens when you have low thyroid hormones is you tend to be colder than everybody else, like physically colder, right? You're sitting in a room and you're like, whew, I need a sweater. And everybody's like, what is wrong with you? It is hot. So that's also a result of having low thyroid. Hair loss is one of those, is also the hair loss that we talked about is one of the symptoms of PCOS that comes from having low thyroid levels. All right. So the last two, so we're going to talk about 5 hormones. The last 2 that I want to mention is high cortisol level, and then we're going to talk about insulin, right? So high cortisol level, we all know that that's the stress hormone. So that actually leads you to be chronically stressed, always in a fight or flight mode. You, from your cortisol being high, that can also push up your insulin. So now you have high insulin that leads to insulin resistance. Insulin resistance, I'm mentioning last, but it is the hallmark of PCOS. 70% of women with PCOS have some sort of insulin resistance, whether it is pre-diabetes, whether you're starting to have the signs and symptoms of having insulin resistance, or whether your doctor has actually diagnosed you with diabetes. 70% of women. And most of the symptoms of PCOS can actually be alleviated with reversing your insulin resistance. Insulin is the hormone that is connected to cortisol, so they play a seesaw role. High cortisol levels can lead to high insulin. High insulin can lead to high cortisol. When your insulin level goes up, it also shoots your androgen hormones up, particularly testosterone, right? So insulin resistance is a huge part of having PCOS. When a lot of the fatigue, the inflammation, which is also common with PCOS, all of that can be alleviated if you can reverse insulin resistance. Now, the reason why I focus on insulin resistance is 2 things. Number 1, 70% of women with PCOS have insulin resistance. Number 2, if you can control your insulin and control your blood sugars, then you can alleviate many of the symptoms of PCOS. And number 3, it can be reversed with diet and exercise. So if you are going to do something and take action and take responsibility for your health, right? Because when you go to your doctor, again, I don't want to get too much into it because I am not a medical doctor, but the general protocol when people are diagnosed with PCOS is they give them metformin. Why? Because metformin is a medicine that actually controls your insulin. But metformin does not allow you to reverse insulin resistance. Once you're on metformin, most people just have to keep taking it. The doctors don't tell you how to reverse it. They're just like, let's prevent this from getting any worse. You're diabetic. How about we try to stave off diabetes a little while longer? That's really their goal. Their goal isn't, hey, let's get you to reverse this diabetes, right? They give you the metformin because they're like, you're going to probably end up diabetic anyway, but the metformin will stave it off a little bit longer. We can wait, a few years before I actually diagnose you with diabetes and switch that metformin to insulin injections. My mother was a insulin-dependent diabetic for 30 years. And I see how that really affects health, lifestyle, and quality of life with yourself, with your family. I grew up with it, right? I have stories and stories about how it affected me as a child, how it affected our family, how it affected my mom and her not being able to do the things that she wanted to do, all because she did not know. And I, as a kid, or even as a younger adult, or someone that was new to health and nutrition, know that we could actually reverse it. Unfortunately, she passed away, rahimahullah, and passed away as a result of 30 years of unmanaged diabetes. When you are trying to reverse your insulin resistance, let's talk about action steps. So if you got a pen and paper, if you got your phone and you want to take some notes, I want you to take some notes real quick for me, okay? Because this is really, really important, right? When you have insulin resistance, the very first thing that you absolutely must do is you must eliminate all sugar, right? All sugar. Added sugar, artificial sugar, high fructose corn syrup, regular sugar. I don't care if it's white sugar, brown sugar, coconut sugar. If it's sugar, eliminate it. I didn't say reduce it. I didn't say eat it in moderation. I said eliminate it, all right? That is the first thing. You must eliminate even natural sugars, honey, maple syrup. If it is sweet, do not add it to anything that you eat. And I know people are going to give me flack about this because let me preempt it. Oh, but honey is the sunnah. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he loved honey. The Prophet did not have insulin resistance and he did not have diabetes. So stop using that as an excuse. You're killing yourself. I'm just telling you, I have to be straightforward with you because this is your life. You have to eat like your life depends on it because it does. You must eliminate sugar from your diet if you have insulin resistance. There's no ifs, ands, and buts. There is no, oh, but I can do it in moderation. Oh, but I'm not addicted to it. All of those are excuses and you will pay the price because your insulin resistance will not change if you do not eliminate sugar, period. Okay? So now that I've beat that horse enough, that's number one. Number two, if you want to reverse your insulin resistance, and again, I have to pre-warn y'all, I'm a straight shooter when it comes to diet and exercise and changing your health. I got to be honest with you. And the honesty is you need to significantly cut carbohydrates. I don't care if your mama make the best biryani. I don't care if you can't go without your auntie's jollof rice. or you must have rice with your fried chicken, and I'm telling you to give up macaroni and cheese, and you absolutely love it, and you don't want to give up. I don't care. I don't care. I'm going to make it real. We do not care. Okay? We talking about your life right now. You got to eat like your life depends on it, because it does. And that means if you want to reverse insulin resistance, you must significantly, when I say significant, I mean like all your carbs come from vegetables. That is what is going to reverse. I'm not trying, if you are pre-diabetic or diabetic or you have insulin resistance, I'm not trying to maintain it. If you just want to maintain yourself so you don't actually get diabetes, you can just go to the doctor, get metformin. That'll do it for you. And then you don't got to change what you eat, right? And then you can just wait 5 years instead of before she puts you on insulin. But if you want to reverse your insulin resistance and you want to prevent yourself from actually having diabetes, which is a huge risk factor for women with PCOS. So the downside of actually being diagnosed with PCOS and not doing anything to alleviate the symptoms, women with PCOS actually have a really high risk of developing actual ovarian cancer. Women with PCOS have a huge, like we said, 70% of women with PCOS have insulin resistance. So diabetes is right around the corner. It's right around the corner. Unfortunately, your body has become super sensitive to carbohydrates when you have PCOS. That means a low carb diet is going to be the best way for you to manage and to get rid of the symptoms, because a sustained low carb, and I'm not talking about low carb Monday through Friday, and then on Saturday and Sunday, you want to eat everything in the world, right? I'm not talking about, oh, but today is just a cheat day. Tell that to your insulin. Sis, you want your insulin to have a cheat day? You need to consistently eat low carbohydrates so that you can reverse the insulin resistance. And then you may, and I'm going to say may, because it's about your lifestyle after that, get yourself to a point where you can have a little bit more carbs. But I'm going to be honest, if you have prediabetes, insulin resistance, or diabetes, you will probably never go back to the point where you will have carbohydrates for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It will be too much for you. Your body has already rejected it. Insulin resistance is the carbohydrates and the sugars that you are eating. Your body cannot handle it anymore. That is what insulin resistance is. All of those years of all of the carbohydrates coming into your body, now your cells are like, I can't do this no more. You're going to have to keep that in that bloodstream because it ain't coming in here. That's basically what your body is saying. And it doesn't happen overnight. A lot of people, they are like, oh, I just haven't been feeling well for, a couple of weeks. And I went to the doctor and now she says I have diabetes. It just happens overnight. No, actually, sis, it didn't. Research shows that insulin resistance on average starts 14 years before a person is actually diagnosed with diabetes. So if you've been diagnosed with diabetes, count back and look at your eating and lifestyle for the last 14 years. It was building. If you have been diagnosed with pre-diabetes, look back probably about 7 years. It's been building. It's not an overnight thing. It doesn't happen. And I think that for me, that is what makes diabetes so pressing, because it is the silent killer. I call diabetes the silent serial killer because it is very silent, not just before you get it. It starts with really little symptoms. I'm just kind of tired. I get tired after I eat. I get hangry. Oh, you know what? I just don't feel that good, right? It starts off with little things. And then your doctor's like, you have diabetes. Okay, so now that you have diabetes, it doesn't get loud. it still starts off and slowly takes away each and every function. And I tell you this from the experience of watching my mother, right? It started off with eyesight goes a little bit. She developed a little bit of neuropathy. Towards the end, she ended up having a massive stroke. That turned into her having to have one foot amputated. And in the end, she developed dementia. Dementia now is considered type 3 diabetes because it is so closely related to insulin resistance. So super important that we control our blood sugar. As a society, we eat way too much sugar. We eat way too much carbohydrates. If you had to grow and raise all of your food, you would not eat the amount of carbohydrates and sugar that you eat. If you raise, but you may say, but coach, wait a minute, I don't even eat chips, or I don't eat cookies, and I don't eat cake. Even if you think that you are eating healthy, if you live in a Western society in particular, you are probably eating about 5 times as much sugar as added sugar. We're not even talking about natural sugar right now. Added sugar than what is recommended. On average, the average American woman eats 5 times as much added sugar as what is recommended. That's not even the fruit. That's not even stuff that's naturally sweet. We're talking about added sugar in, for example, pasta sauce, right? It's like, well, this is healthy. I'm having pasta. That's my carbohydrates. I'm putting a little bit of ground turkey in it because that's low fat. And we're going to have some, pasta sauce with it. And we're going to, have a vegetable on the side. That's a healthy meal, right? But your pasta sauce literally has the equivalent of 3 teaspoons of sugar in it, just on the pasta sauce. But wait, I don't eat pasta sauce. I actually try not to eat so many carbohydrates, and I have some grilled chicken, and I put a little bit of barbecue sauce on it, and that should be okay, right? And I have that, and I have my rice and my vegetable. Sis, have you looked at the amount of sugar in barbecue sauce? Just look at it. Just pull a barbecue sauce off of your shelf. Look at the amount of sugar in it. Compare it to a soda. And that is if you get the good barbecue sauce that actually says cane sugar and not the first ingredient being high fructose corn syrup, which has its own issues in itself. So there is sugar in things that you would never think, oh, but I really love salads. And so I eat salads on a daily basis. Look at your salad dressing, sugar. So even people who quote unquote eat healthy, if you are not paying attention to the ingredients in your food, particularly the sugar and the carbohydrates, you are still eating too much sugar. Juice is liquid sugar. I ain't even talking about soda. I'm talking about juice, orange juice, apple juice. Nature did not intend for us to eat the equivalent of the juice of 5 oranges and drink it down in 30 seconds with no fiber that comes inside the orange. Did not intended for us to eat the equivalent of 8 apples in a cup of juice and drink it down in 30 seconds. That's not the way you're supposed to consume fruit. Juice is a, I'm using my air quotes again, healthy person's soda. So if you are healthy eating and you are still drinking juice, you are eliminating many of the health effects. We know now in research that you can have just 20 grams of sugar and it decreases your immune system for 5 hours. And we are in a pandemic. We need our immune system to be as strong as possible. If you already have a compromised immune system because you have some existing illness, we know that this is something that is going to put us at risk. We know that there is a strong correlation between diabetes and the outcome of COVID patients. That is one of the pre-existing risk factors that they talk so much about that can exacerbate and increase the chances of dying from COVID, right? Insulin resistance. We must reverse insulin resistance in order for us to be healthy. I'm going to say one more thing and if you have any questions, go ahead and put them inside of the comment. I'll take about 5 minutes to talk about the questions. But the last thing that I want to talk to you about is how should you exercise if you have insulin resistance, if you have PCOS. PCOS prescription. So exercise is medicine. Just like food is medicine, movement is medicine. And we know through research how we need to apply the medicine, what type of movement best helps what type of illness. So for insulin resistance, which is the mainstay of women with PCOS, you must lift weights and build muscle. Cardio is good. You should do cardiovascular exercise. Resistance training is great. If you had to choose between the two, and you should not choose, you should do both. Resistance training is where you need to put your energy and effort. If you're like, well, I've never lifted a weight and I can't do a push-up, sis, learn. Your life depends on it. One of the reasons why it helps you if you have insulin resistance is because your muscles is the third place. We talked about the other day that glucose and glycogen, which is what your body converts glucose to, is stored in 3 places in your body: your blood, your liver, and your muscles. If you build more muscle, it will literally act like a sponge and suck the glucose out of your blood and your liver. The more muscle you have, the better, because your muscles will store the glycogen. It will pull that glucose and store that glycogen so it's not in your blood causing damage. So build muscle. And no, you will not look like Arnold Schwarzenegger if you build muscle. Arnold Schwarzenegger had to take steroids to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So unless you're taking steroids, you will not look like Arnold Schwarzenegger, whether you're a man or a woman. So but that's a whole nother issue, right? So build muscle. That means lift weights, do push-ups, do squats, do lunges. Your goal should be to build muscle, build lean muscle. That is the prescription for insulin resistance. That is the prescription to help you. It's not just about aesthetics. If you have PCOS, if you have prediabetes, if you have any sign of insulin resistance, if you have been diagnosed with diabetes, it is not about you getting a tight butt. That's just a side effect. There's a little extra you're going to get. But it is about it helping to control your blood glucose level. You need muscle, right? We know this from research. Muscle building, resistance training for insulin resistance, cardiovascular training for high blood pressure. That's just a little side extra for you. If you're like, hey, this was super interesting, but my problem is my blood pressure is high, you must go for a walk or run every single day. All right. We'll talk about high blood pressure on another live. All right. What questions? We have a couple of questions. Yes, Alima, we talked about that. You can have regular cycles and still have PCOS. Yes, Rwanda, we can definitely reverse it. We talked about that, right? We can actually reverse insulin resistance, which is one of the reasons why we focus on it, because 70% of women with PCOS actually have insulin resistance, and that is something that we know for sure can be reversed. I am here to tell you, I've had women who join my program and they start off with an A1C of a 12, and literally within 6 weeks, the A1C is a 6. They cut it in half, all right? So super important. Laverne, I actually you can watch the video again, and the first like 10 minutes, I actually go into very detail of what PCOS is. Would resistance training also help you lose fat? Yes, because so resistance training is going to have multiple benefits for you if you are doing resistance training for your PCOS. But today, the specific benefit that I want to point out is that it will help you to lower and control your blood glucose level. Because oftentimes when you are diagnosed with diabetes or pre-diabetes and you're actually told to monitor your blood glucose level, the doctor really just says, hey, monitor your glucose level. My mother, when she was diagnosed, and mind you, I recognize this was like 30 years ago, but when she was diagnosed with diabetes, the doctor was just like, here's some insulin and stop drinking Pepsi. That was like all of the advice that she was given. She wasn't told anything about how to manage her stress. Remember, we talked about cortisol, making your insulin level go up. If you are a worrywart, you are going to have a harder time managing your insulin level, because every time that you're stressed out and you're unable to manage that stress, your insulin level is going to go up, right? So we got to talk about stress management in one of these lives. So that is going to definitely be coming up. Need to know so much. And on another note, I need to know where your shirt is from. Oh, thank you. My shirt is actually one of the prototypes for the new shirts that I am coming out with. I should be launching it next week, early next week. It is actually a fit Muslima shirt, meaning that it is modest. It is long sleeve and it's long, meaning that it comes down to the knee. So look for it next week. We should have some posts where you can actually get one. And that is our motto: pray, sweat, eat, repeat. Do it every day. All right. How can we tell if we have insulin resistance? Scroll my Instagram profile and I have I've been talking about that specifically for the last 2 weeks. So I have lots of information about that. All of the signs and symptoms for insulin resistance. I did videos on it. So scroll my Instagram profile, on Facebook too, because what I post on Facebook, most of what I post on Instagram goes on Facebook, not everything. So if you have Instagram, you want to follow me there too. How long does it take to reverse insulin resistance when it's not resistant yet you notice some symptoms? Okay, that is a good question. Insulin resistance, what we know from research is that insulin resistance, the longer you've had it, the longer it takes to be reversed, right? So if you have been a full-fledged diabetic on insulin 5 times a day for a year, it will take you much longer to reverse insulin resistance than somebody who says, well, I can tell that my insulin goes up and have a hard time coming down because I have several of these symptoms of insulin resistance. Then it varies from person to person. So that's the short answer. It varies from person to person, depending on how long you've had it and how severe it is, how severe your insulin resistance is. The less you've had it, if you've actually not been diagnosed with diabetes, it will take a shorter time for you to, our goal is for you to gain what is called metabolic flexibility. Metabolic flexibility is when you have metabolic flexibility, that when you do intake any carbohydrates, your body knows what to do with it, but your body also has the ability to burn fat. The problem with most people with insulin resistance is that when they are just consuming fat, the body actually has to be taught how to make that switch from being a sugar glucose burner into a fat burner. And it only can be taught that with consistency of using fat as energy. I hope that wasn't too long to answer. Yes, we have to talk about stress. Yes, teenagers can have insulin resistance. Children can have insulin resistance. This is how it has changed inside of our society. We used to, 50 years ago, we used to call type 1 diabetes, we used to call it childhood diabetes, And we used to call type 2 diabetes, which is insulin resistance, we used to call it adult diabetes. That is literally what the term that the doctors would use 50 years ago. Because our children have become so obese, because of the amount of sugar and carbohydrates that they are intaking, they started seeing they started seeing adult, quote unquote, onset diabetes. That's what it used to be called, adult onset diabetes, happen in people in their 20s and then people in their 10s. And now we're seeing children with not type 1 diabetes, but with type 2. Because of that switch in how our kids are becoming so much unhealthier, we now refer to it as type 1 and type 2. Because we can no longer say this is adult onset, because so many kids are getting type 2 diabetes. It's not type 1, it's type 2. So yes, young children can also have diabetes and insulin resistance. After curing insulin resistance, can you eat carbs and natural sugars? We talked about that earlier. It depends on where you are in your health. Most people who have diabetes or pre-diabetes, you will not go back to being able to eat pancakes for breakfast and a sandwich for lunch and pasta for dinner, right? You will probably not be able to go. Your body no longer can handle that amount of carbohydrates, and it varies per individual. And I have to be honest about that, because oftentimes the problem that I see, particularly when people take on a low carb lifestyle, is they do it as a crash diet. Oh, well, if I go low carb, I'm going to lose 20 pounds and I'm going to be great. And then I can go back and I can enjoy my pasta. I can enjoy my bread. I can enjoy it. Doesn't quite work like that. The reason why you're having a difficult time losing weight when you are lowering your calories, and I'm having 1 slice of bread instead of 2. I'm going to have just a quarter cup of rice instead of a whole cup, right? And you're still not losing weight, is because your body literally cannot take that much of carbohydrates, because it's gone so long with it fighting the insulin that you are just in a state where you have to adjust your eating to respond to your body. All right. Okay, awesome. Laverne, did you exercise 5 days a week? I'm always I always love when people exercise. Okay, so no. If you have insulin resistance, using natural honey is actually worse than sugar. So on Facebook, on Instagram, someone said, is using natural honey better than sugar? We are specifically talking about insulin resistance right now and in this live, and as it relates to PCOS. When it comes to insulin resistance, no, honey is not better than sugar. Honey is actually higher in glucose than sugar, and it will send your insulin level up higher quicker. So no, when it comes to insulin resistance. All right. All right. So last thing I am going to mention to you is my metabolic health coaching program actually starts on the 27th. So if you are a woman, and I'm specifically gathering women together that have PCOS, pre-diabetes, or diabetes for a special coaching. It is a hybrid coaching program, which means most of my programs right now, if you join the Burn Belly Fat Challenge, you're going to be in a program with 100 women, right? This program is much more intimate. I'm only taking a maximum of 25 women. Part of the reason is because it is a hybrid program, which means we are going to do group sessions, but we will also do one-on-one, just you and I on a video chat, so we can dive deeper into what you specifically need that may be different than what the group need. There are some general guidelines that we're going to have. So the goal for me for this group is I'm specifically gathering together women who need to reverse insulin resistance, right? Those are all the categories. PCOS, you've been diagnosed. 70% of women with PCOS need to reverse insulin resistance. This is the program for you. You've been recently told by your doctor that, hey, you're pre-diabetic and you need to do something about it, right? you have insulin resistance. You're diabetic. You're already on metformin. You're already on insulin. We're going to reverse your insulin resistance. And so I want to gather everybody with this specific goal, right? You're not only going to be together as a group, but also once a month, you and I will jump on a phone call and do one-on-one coaching. And because I'm doing mostly group and then we do one-on-one coaching, it is more than my group program, but less than what I would charge for one-on-one coaching. So you can send me, you can comment inside of the video, comment coaching in the comments, and I will send you the information. I will DM you the information, or you can just DM me coaching. And then I know that you want the information about the metabolic health coaching. We start on the 27th. It's only 1 week left for you to grab your spot. I believe last time we checked, we were almost half full. So I want you to grab your spot to come in and let's take care of this. Let's take care of your insulin resistance. All right. Now is the time. Do not wait. All right. So let me know if you have any extra questions after you've watched the whole video, because many of the questions we did answer towards the beginning of the video. And if you want to jump in on the metabolic health coaching program, you comment coaching or send me a DM that says coaching. So I know that you're specifically asking about the metabolic health coaching. All right. You guys have an awesome weekend. I am going to actually have an extra awesome weekend because I'm going to do an extra hiking. I went hiking this morning and I did 5 miles unintentionally. I was like, yeah, I'm going to go on a hike for about an hour. And 2 hours later, I was still coming out the woods. And my husband is like, he's texting me, are you okay? Is everything good? I thought you was going to be home half an hour ago. But I'm going to do that again because I love hiking. All right. You guys have an awesome weekend. Remember, pray, sweat, eat, repeat on a daily basis. All right. Assalamu alaikum.